All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor, practice going growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and financial advisors are the main clients we serve. So, my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Paul Ragone. Paul, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on. My name is Paul Ragone, as you said, and I've been in this business since 1997. Our
Mhm.
company is Integrity Wealth Services, and we are based out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So I normally like to start the show by hearing more about how you got into this amazing industry we both so love.
It was a kind of a long story here, but let's go for it. Right after college, I started working for a financial company. That's what they were called, but it was basically giving loans to people with bad credit. Somehow that
Hmm.
fit into the financial services industry. Anyway, it wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was a good paying job at the time, just getting out of college. Basically, that's what I did. And when you first start in that business, you start at the bottom, which is collections, and that wasn't one of something I really looked forward to doing actually, but I did it anyway. And then
Hmm.
you eventually work your way up to the point where you're the one who's deciding on whether or not to approve loans. And so I did that for a couple of years. I actually enjoyed it, and a lot of the people, even though they might not have had great credit, were actually super nice.
Hmm.
I thoroughly enjoyed that job for a while. Well, there was another aspect to that job where you go around to, let's say, a furniture company and try to get them to do 12 months, same as cash financing. And in that case, you're working with a much higher clientele because it's a lot of people that just know, if I'm not paying interest on something, I'm just going to use their money for a while. So,
Hmm.
um, so I really enjoyed that part and going out and meeting with business owners and trying to develop that business. So somewhere down the line, a couple of years later, I guess because I became good at that part, I got offered a management position for another branch in Marietta, Georgia. And that was an instant yes for me because I had a good friend that lived there. And, I was still young. It was a good time to be heading down to Atlanta. So found an apartment. It was actually a great time to be in Atlanta because I wasn't a huge baseball fan, but the Braves won that year, the World Series. And then right after
Hmm.
that, the next year was the Olympics. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I managed that place for a couple of years, and we were really successful. We were 12th, which was the worst in the district. And by the time I left there, we were number one. So taking a lot of credit for that because we worked hard. I had a really good staff. Um, but the whole time I kept, a lot of times I have my family is here in Knoxville, and my girlfriend at the time, then my wife, was up here. So I found myself coming back up here a lot, uh, almost every weekend actually. And so I kind of wanted to come back home. And
Hmm.
so I was looking around, and one of the insurance companies, I won't name them, but one of the bigger insurance companies was hiring. So I guess they're always hiring, but Um, I went and interviewed, got the job, and then I turned in my 2 week notice when I got back down to Atlanta, and I had 2 weeks to move um, and to pass my 6 and 63, which I knew
Hmm.
nothing about this business. So we packed up a U-Haul on a Thursday, drove back on a Friday. My brother helped me, and I got the study materials that Friday afternoon. They weren't on a computer back then. It was just the actual books. And so I studied for the six Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, took the test on Tuesday. Then I studied for the 63 Wednesday and Thursday, and took the test on Friday and fortunately passed both of them. Um,
Yeah, that was impressive.
yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had a longer period of time, I might not have passed on the first time. I don't know. It's just, I was so focused on, like, I didn't leave the house. That was it. That was my life for a week. And so, yeah, I was fortunate to pass them that quickly and get that over with. So, yeah, so then I was with that insurance company. We focused. There was a good time in the market. I remember sending out postcards where their funds had, like, 110, 120% returns the previous year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, everybody was making money. It was right before the crash. And so,
Hmm.
I did really well actually, because that business, the way it works is you start with your family first. And so that worked out well for me. And that company offered a lot of bonuses if you brought in a certain amount of money. And so the other thing that I realized quickly was that a lot of advisors that start there, I'm sure this is with most companies, most insurance companies, don't make it. And so all those parents of all these advisors and all their family, whatever, gets at that point, were in a big filing cabinet, essentially orphaned clients that nobody was touching or nobody was servicing. And so I went through those, as many as I could. I wasn't even sure if I was allowed to, but I grabbed them and I started calling them. And sure enough, I built up a decent book of business pretty quickly. And I was pretty happy with that. But I didn't like basically being able to offer clients proprietary products when there was
Hmm.
other things out there. As I learned more about the business, I realized there's other things out there that could benefit them better. So, to make a long story short here, um, while I was realizing that, this company also decided that, you know what, you should be offering your clients property and casualty insurance as well. And I was thinking, that's not at all what I want to be doing. And some of the other advisors that were there, that had been there a while, were not happy with that either. So it's kind of like a mass exodus at that point. And um, I thought, hey, I'm doing okay. I'm just as good as these guys. I'm going to go out on my own and go independent. And couldn't have done it at the worst time. Shortly after that was the dot-com. And
Oh no.
yeah, and all these, like having my office paid for and all that other stuff was gone. And all the bonuses I had, they didn't, I had to pay for everything at that point, thinking, oh, I was making
Hmm.
a great decision here. Um, and my wife was pregnant, and basically I had to work from home for a little while. And man, we
Hmm.
struggled. In all honesty, we struggled pretty hard. I didn't know what I was getting into, and had I wouldn't have changed it if I had to do it all over again, because it was a great learning experience. But
Hmm.
it was way harder than I anticipated going in.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit of ego got in the way, maybe. I'm not sure. I thought, I think because my experience of working with that company went so well, I just figured, hey, I
Hmm.
know what I'm doing. I will
Hmm.
give them credit for one thing, though. Their training was excellent. So that was a big benefit in helping me grow. Eventually, over time, I kept slowly growing this business, slowly at first.
Hmm.
And how many years later, here we are, where I have a great life and a great business.
Hmm. Wow. Um, that's big ups to you for sticking with that decision. I'm sure the temptation and the opportunity to go right back to where you were was right there the whole time, and
I
you got this like cratering market, a
yes,
pregnant wife at home. Like,
I,
man,
I
that's you got some cojones on you, sir.
I probably quit about 30 times in my mind during that period. But I just knew I could, like everything, if you just stick with it, you can probably have some success.
Yeah, I mean, well, you passed your 66 and
6 and 63.
6 and 63. Sorry, I
Yeah.
got the sixes crossed. Yeah, I mean, you passed your 6 and 63 in a week, so
Yeah. Yeah. That was,
you
that
you
was,
put your mind to something. There's not much you can't accomplish.
yeah. Yeah. I would like to say maybe there was a little bit of luck involved with that too, but who knows? Just some things just work out, and that whole journey worked out for me eventually.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I think, obviously it's super difficult to find clients when the literal sky is falling in those moments. But then, the clients you do find in and around those periods, you're like, look at the return.
Exactly. Exactly. And the bigger problem, Chris, was that once I left, I had a 2-year non-compete. So I couldn't even
Hmm.
really talk to my dad.
Oh wow.
Of course, he switched over, but but I couldn't talk to all these clients who had, it was actually a lot of hard work going through those filing cabinets when other people weren't doing that, and sorting through and figuring out what these people had and why they had it. And
Hmm. Hmm.
sure enough, a lot of it was upfront commission and annuity business. So I wasn't even going to make, the other advisors already been paid. So I wasn't even going to make anything, but I just wanted to learn the business and how to
Hmm.
service people and just do the right thing. So
Yeah, what so these orphaned clients, they were just clients that the advisor was no longer there, or what was their story?
yeah, so it's kind of like, and I'm sure it's the same with most insurance companies where, they hire anybody for the most part. Um,
Hmm.
unless unless you're a bad person or whatever. But and when you first get into the business, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. You just all I went from, going to meet with furniture store owners one week to try to get their business to pretending I'm a financial advisor a week and a half later. Right. I didn't know what a financial advisor really even was. And
Yeah.
so, and I was thankful for the training that they provided,
Hmm.
but a lot of people, I don't think you had to have you had to meet certain criteria, monetary wise. And I don't remember what the numbers were. Fortunately, I was like way over it, but a lot of people don't get there, and I can see how they wouldn't be able to get there if you don't have family to turn to, or if you do have family to turn to, but they don't have anything that they can invest at the moment. They might still be working or whatever. So um, it's a really hard business to start. I think
Hmm.
for people starting now, it's probably even harder, to be honest with you, in my opinion, just because of the way the regulations are now. It was a lot easier back then. So,
Hmm.
but it was still really hard. And I think a lot of advisors think they know what they're getting into, just like I thought I knew I was getting into, and I had no idea what I was getting into. So
Hmm.
they'll build a little bit of business. They just won't make the minimum required, and then they're out, and then they can't touch those clients. And so they're just at that point, like everything's electronic now, but at that point there was giant file cabinets full of all these orphaned clients. And so to me, it
Hmm.
was a gold mine. And I couldn't understand why other people weren't going in there and grabbing some of those files and looking through them. But they didn't. So I I don't remember ever being told not to do that. So I went and did it. Um, yeah, so I don't know. It was just really easy for me to, not easy, but it was, I found a way in and a way to meet all the criteria and build the client base. And I was, did really, really well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're resourceful and creative and using all the tools at your disposal. Like, if someone gets mad, you're just like, oh, sorry, I didn't know I can do that.
Right. Exactly. Right. What is that? What that expression where you ask for forgiveness later or
Yeah,
something? That was
yeah.
that was for sure me.
Yeah, don't ask for permission, beg for forgiveness.
Right. That's it. That's it. That was me 100%.
Yeah, yeah, that's smart. So as you were kind of working with those orphan clients and perhaps finding other clients as well, did certain types of clients or niches or specific uh client types start
Yeah.
showing up?
Not so much during that period, that because that was a mix of all different kinds of people. I was just grabbing random folders, not knowing who was in there, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I went independent, and I slowly started building my business, the more I read, the more it was, you're supposed to really find your niche, dig down and who you want your clients to be and what you want them to look like and all that kind of stuff. And I had a hard
Hmm.
time doing that, because I felt like that I was pigeonholing myself, and instead of being able to work with a lot of other people, why am I looking for this one specific type of person?
Hmm.
I later found out that it's actually a good thing to do, but at the time I was thinking, I need clients. I'm going to work with anybody. So when I got to the point where I realized, well, maybe I do need to define a little bit better so potential clients understand the kind of people I want to work with, and um, and who their advisor, what they specialize in, kind of thing. I realized when I looked at my own book of business that a lot of the people I had as clients were engineers. And so close to Knoxville is a town called Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where, Department of Energy, Department of Defense has these huge facilities. And there's just, thousands and thousands and thousands of engineers that go there every day. Um, the, they are really, really good savers. They're just regular guys. They come in here, blue jeans and t-shirt kind of people.
Hmm.
It takes a while for them to become a client. They're the kind that comes back with the prospectuses highlighted kind of people. They actually
Okay.
read them, which is very rare, I would think. So, it's good for me because it keeps me on my toes. You always got to be aware of potential questions that you're going to get asked. And so you eventually figure out, they all ask very similar questions. Actually, they're very similar people. But they make, pretty good income, but it, because they save so well, you would think their income was much higher than it actually is. They live well below their means, all of them. It's really unusual how many of them live like just a simple lifestyle in a regular house, but they got, $2 million in savings or
Wow.
401ks or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it blows me away. So it's a great thing. I really, really like working with those guys a lot because they're very, very similar, and just good people. So that would be, probably my number one group. And then I have a secondary sort of group, which is mostly from CPA referrals. Um, it's physicians, people in the
Hmm.
medical field, which is the complete opposite of the engineer. Um, Physicians tend to spend a lot of money.
Mm.
They don't live below their means, but but because they make a lot of money, they can afford to do those things, I guess. But
Hmm.
it's just two different dynamics, which is fun to me because it doesn't keep me just locked into one group. I have to learn about both groups separately, and both are unique. They both have unique challenges in different
Hmm.
ways. So.
Mm. Awesome. What you mentioned a lot of the engineers ask similar questions. Can you share some of the most common
So
questions that they
yeah,
ask?
the number one question from engineers is about fees.
Mm.
Uh, by by far, that's the first thing they'll talk about. A lot of them are referrals, so they kind of know a lot of how I work, so that they don't really ask so much about um, my process or anything like that. They kind of know already coming in. They're pretty warm clients at that point.
Hmm.
They already know the fees from the person they talk to. I don't know if they think somebody different than the other, so
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's a
but
test.
yeah, exactly. But then I guess the main question is about the actual investments themselves. Um, and then because not every client has the same portfolio, even though, all the clients are similar in that group,
Hmm.
they all have different portfolios depending on what we're trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that's basically the main questions, diversification, all that kind of stuff. And then I would say, because a lot of them they've been working there, their main source of savings has been their 401k plan. Uh,
Hmm.
Probably the number two question would be about Roth conversions once they retire. And they explain that process and how that works. And yeah, I would say that's the main things they ask.
Hmm. Okay, got it. And how involved do they like to be? Like, do engineers like to be?
Not very, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this could lead a little bit into my client onboarding process,
Mm-hmm.
where and a lot of advisors who might be listening to this might think that this is not an efficient way of bringing on a new client, but for me, I'll explain why at the end. But for me, it just makes more sense. So for me to bring on a client, it's generally 4 to 5 meetings before we sign any paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though they're smart guys, a lot of them they know how to save, they know to sack money away in the 401ks or whatever, but they don't really know 100% what they're investing in. They're just kind of going with the flow, like what other guys around them are investing in. Um, so we spend quite a bit of time on education on the front end, a lot. Um, and so, the first meeting is just getting to know each other. Like I said, a lot of times it's a warm meeting already because of the referral source. Um, but then the second meeting is where I think I differentiate myself from almost any advisor around here, I would say. I have a separate room besides the conference room. To me, the conference room is kind of like you sign paperwork there, you do your first meeting there or whatever. You might show investment returns or something like that on the TV, that kind of thing. But it's not intimate. It's very business-like in there. And we have a nice conference room, so I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I have a separate room where on the second meeting, and the clients aren't expecting this at all, I generally tell them to bring their husband or their wife. Um, we go into this other room, which is just past the conference room, which like I said, I never told them about. And it's just basically 4 chairs and a round coffee table. And we just sit down and I ask them some questions. We have like some cue cards basically that have like 2 topics on each of them. And I lay them on the table and I just said basically, what would you like to talk about? Any of these things stand out. And so what I do is I don't bring a pen or paper in there. I don't bring my iPad in there. I don't bring anything in there. I just sit back and listen. And um, engineer minds don't really like to have these conversations in general. But because there's little cards that can sort of spur the conversation along, they find themselves talking way more than they were expecting to. And so, between the husband and the wife or whatever, in that room, I've had people, usually the wife, like actually crying. Um, because a lot of
Wow.
times these people don't have these conversations at home. And they
Mm-hmm.
think, okay, well, I'm approaching retirement, but they never realize or think about or talk about what they're going to do once that actually happens. And a lot of times they find out real quick during that meeting that they're on different pages. They thought they were going to be doing different things than what, each other thought. Um, so it's a really interesting room. I call it the experience room because people come out of there not knowing the experience that they were about to go into. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I told him, the previous meeting, if we decided to work together during that first meeting, and I told him to come back for the second meeting where I'm going to get to know them a little bit better. If I told them what it was actually going to be like, I'm afraid that they would be prepared, almost like defensive in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
because I don't give them the chance to do that, they're just kind of wide open, and the conversations are so good. I get to know so much about them, and as soon as that meeting is over, I quickly have to come into my office here and write down all the notes, otherwise I'll forget them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and
Wow.
it's a really really good experience. And then the third meeting is I have I basically have this little diagram where all those categories that we talk about, I fill in. And then the next meeting, they come back in and I show them that. And I say, did I miss anything? Because this is basically the cornerstone for our financial plan going forward. And so they review it and they're pretty impressed that I kind of remembered all that stuff. And I don't have a great memory. If I didn't do it within 10 minutes afterwards, I would forget half of it. Um, and then I already, from the first meeting, I kind of know that I already qualified them. I wouldn't go through that whole process if there were, if I couldn't help them at all. Um, so I knew they were qualified, and it's usually like by the fourth meetings when we start looking at statements and I do a comparison between their existing portfolio versus a recommended portfolio. And I have all the information to create a recommended portfolio based on our conversations. And we have a risk tolerance questionnaire. So it just puts me in a specific, guides me in the right direction to building a portfolio. Um, and then I present that to them in the fifth meeting. And if they decide to go with me, we pretty much have the paperwork ready to go. So it's that fifth meeting when we're actually doing signatures, and getting money transferred over and the beginnings of a financial plan.
Wow.
So,
That second meeting is I mean brilliant. Like so many things are accomplished there. Like you have tough conversations, you get them to have tough conversations, you listen to them having tough conversations. It connects you, it paints a clear picture, like here's how we're gonna help you. That's brilliant. How'd you come up with this five
well,
meeting plan?
it's not, well, the five meeting part I just came up with, but the concept of those cards are from one of the third party money managers that I use, which is Buckingham. Uh,
Hmm.
they have a system called Design, Build, Protect, or whatever, but those cards are part of it. Um, the room itself was my idea. Um, I like the cards. People actually pick them up and they, kind of hold them, and it just like, I don't know why, it just comforts them a little bit, like having something to hold on to. And it's just such a a good atmosphere in that room. It's so calm and nothing business-like in there, and it's just great conversations. And I was very, very worried when I first started implementing that people would think I'm nuts and never come back, because I don't think any other advisor does that kind of thing where they just bring them into a separate room and just let them talk. So if I talk, in an hour, if I talk 10 minutes out of that whole thing, then I've spoken too much. I'm there to listen and figure out exactly what we're trying to accomplish and what they want. And it's it's the best way I've come across of figuring out what we need to do to start a financial plan and what we actually are trying to solve for.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the five meetings, I think, to circle back to the point I was going to make, is that if other advisors think it's not efficient, well, I think the education part is so important, so that when we have days where the market's down thousands of points, 1,000 points, whatever, my phone is not ringing off the wall, because the education part on the front was so important. They
Mm-hmm.
understand how markets work now. They understand these kinds of things are going to happen. And so I'm willing to spend that time on the front to educate them, where I don't have to worry about my phone ringing off the wall because the market's down or something they heard on the financial news or something like that.
Hmm.
We don't get those calls. My clients
Okay.
understand. So I'm
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very rarely have to keep someone from jumping over the ledge. So yeah, I actually, I take a lot of pride in that, because I know other advisors, talk to a lot of other advisors, and I know, like, when there was a bad day in the market, they're going to have a bad day themselves, and we don't have that here.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. They understand the plan.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I really I appreciate that
yeah,
and respect that. And that's just I mean accomplishing so many things, like so many powerful things in such a short amount of time. And then
yeah,
and then yeah, they actually don't even become a client for three more meetings is
yeah.
I mean just a testament. You're like, yeah, I mean
I,
what
I
are we rushing for? Like you
right, exactly.
we just had this incredible conversation. You were crying.
My thought is that if they have gone so deep into telling me things that they probably even haven't told their, family members or whatever, they're going to be a client. They're not going to tell me all this information and not come back. So I'm willing to
Mhm.
invest that time. I know for sure. I'm pretty confident that, they will be clients once I do all the rest of the presentation and the rest of
Mhm.
the meetings. So,
Well,
um,
I mean, that's a huge differentiator for you as well, because I imagine most, folks of means, you're not the first financial advisor they've ever, had any experience with. And the fact that, the initial meeting, you're evaluating like if you can help them or not. And then
mhm.
the second meeting is like, conversations that they need to have but
Yep.
haven't even had with each other. They're just like, oh, I mean, talk about differentiating yourself in like a very powerful, impactful, you know,
Yeah.
helpful way.
When people walk out of that room, it's almost like they don't know what just happened to them. I really mean that. But I always get complimented on it. I walk them
Hmm.
out into the lobby. I always get complimented on that, and they always say,
Yeah.
This is where the experience room came up from. One of my clients said, "We've been with other advisors. We've never had an experience like that before." And
Hmm.
so, ding, that was when the experience room came to be named as such.
Yeah, I love the name as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Paul, well, we're coming towards the end of our time, unfortunately. I could definitely keep asking you questions, but I will respect your time. My final question is actually real quick. I want to hear about your website. It ends
Oh,
with .1.
yeah. So, full disclosure here. So actually, our website was named
Hmm.
integritywealthservices.com. And so my email address is paul@integritywealthservices.com. And I always felt like that was too long. I felt like the website address is too long. And so just to back up a little bit further, I it used to be Ragone Wealth Management. And I've been in the business for so long, and a lot of people don't know how to pronounce my last name and whatever. So I the word integrity actually means something to me, and I know it's used a lot in this business, but I feel like for being in business as long as I have, I actually earned it. And so I was like, I'm going to use the word integrity. That word means something to me. And then I realized that almost every other company uses the word integrity. So I was able to finally find Integrity Wealth Services, which is kind of what we do. Like we bring in CPAs, we bring in estate planning attorneys. We do that all in-house. Um, and at least for the first meeting, and then they can meet separately, but we're all on the same page at that point if we do it in-house for that initial meeting. But IWS, so I wanted to shorten it. So it's Integrity Wealth Services, IWS.com was taken, and it's taken by a sanitation company. So they had no desire to sell their domain name. So I was looking through and I found .1. And so I was like, all right, I'll try this just to see. I kept integritywealthservices.com. Now it's a redirect. Um, but, and then I started thinking, well, I can use this .1 as sort of a marketing piece because it, I really want this place to be the one-stop shop. And so like I just mentioned, if I have a meeting with clients and we need a CPA and we need an estate planning attorney, this is it. My guys come here to meet with the clients, and we're all in that conference room, and everybody gets on the same page real quick. There's no a million different phone calls back and forth. What did you say to them? That kind of thing. It's all done at once.
Hmm.
So I mean, the .1 became a big focus because it really is like the one-stop shop for me, and I want my clients to realize that as well. So
Hmm.
I used the domain name as sort of a marketing tool to
Hmm.
just to further emphasize that this is a one-stop shop.
Yeah, that's cool. That's another very very unique thing about you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, final question for you, Paul.
Yep.
Open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like. It is, what are you working towards?
Oh, this is actually pretty simple. It's something that I've been working towards since I got in the business. Really, that's striving to become a better advisor every day. Uh,
Mm.
whether that's through education, talking with other advisors, going to conferences, listening to podcasts like this one. All those things are super helpful. And the way I look at it is, if I'm a better advisor today than I was yesterday, then my clients are better off today than they were yesterday. So that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Well, everything you've shared today definitely shows that you are walking the talk as
I
well, my friend. So,
appreciate that.
where can my audience find out more about you and everything you're working on?
So the website is the best place, I guess. www.iws.one. We are on Facebook.
And that's ONE, right? Not the number
ONE,
one.
correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
We're on Facebook and we're on LinkedIn. We are on Twitter, X, whatever, but we don't, our posts, our automated posts don't go on there anymore for some reason. Something happened with their connection with
Hmm.
the company that we use to do the automated post. But we're on all the social platforms. My email address, if any advisor wants to learn more about the experience room kind of thing or whatever, is paul@iws.one. And yeah, just if you type in Integrity Wealth Services, all the stuff's on there. So
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. We'll be sure to link all that in the show notes. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time. Um,
I enjoyed being here.
just loved hearing your story and just the way you approach, being a financial advisor is very impressive and something to strive towards. So thank you for sharing your time and experience.
Thanks
I
for the
learned I learned stuff. I'm sure our audience really will really benefit from it as well. So thank you, sir. Keep up the great
absolute.
work.
Enjoyed
Yeah.
being here, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah. This was awesome. And to all my listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.